No one raised a toast at Thanksgiving. My sister raised my open laptop like a trophy. The screen angled toward 20 relatives who stopped mid. 12.6 million glowed in the corner like a siren. My mother's fork slipped. My father went stone still, and a hush settled so heavy you could hear the candles hiss. So, Kara said, voice bright with triumph, our girl's been sitting on a fortune. Eyes swung to me like I'd been caught stealing from a church plate. No congratulations. No, how did you do it? Just calculation. Gears clicking into place. They thought they'd found the vault. None of them knew I had found theirs first. Before you decide I'm ruthless, stay with me. I'm not here to brag. I'm here to explain why a number became a weapon, and why I refused to let it be aimed at me again. My name is Mara, and the first thing you should know is that money didn't change me. Silence did. I grew up in a river town where winters bit skin, where my mother worked nights at the clinic and my father fixed whatever the neighbors couldn't. When my sister came early, tiny, fierce, the center of every conversation, the house developed a new gravity. You learn to orbit other people's urgency when you're the healthy child, so I became useful. I stacked chairs after school plays. I covered shifts, learned to listen, learned to fold myself small. Useful is invisible if you do it well. By the time I left for college, on scholarship, with a suitcase that squeaked when I rolled it, I understood the exchange rate of attention in our family. They praised Kara's potential the way some people praise weather forecasts, lavishly, without certainty, and always with the expectation the sky would eventually obey. I learned to praise results. I studied the quiet economies of rarity and provenance, the lifelines that run through art and heirlooms and contracts written in careful ink. By 28, I ran an authentication practice that museums didn't advertise but quietly dialed when panic hit. It wasn't flashy. It was competent, discreet, and expensive because mistakes are expensive. They didn't ask how my rent was paid. They didn't ask why I flew to Geneva for 2 days and came back with a new client and a heavy silence. They believed what made their lives easier, that I was fine, always fine, endlessly fine. When Kara changed majors, education to design to business, to something with the word creative in it, my mother called in the same tremor-soft voice every time. She's trying so hard, honey, just a little help this term. A little help was thousands. I set up transfers. I didn't preach. I didn't post. I didn't even correct the neighbors when they said my parents were supporting me. Useful is quiet, and quiet keeps the peace. Except quiet also keeps you erased. The month before Thanksgiving, 2 things happened. First, Kara posted a photo beside a limited edition convertible with a caption about grinding until the haters ask if you're hiring. Second, I received an email not meant for me, a group thread titled Family Plan with a spreadsheet attached. It outlined reasonable contributions I would be expected to make over the next 5 years. Tuition chunks, housing, a safety net stipend, and, my favorite, seed funding for Kara's brand launch. They had even scheduled a family meeting after dessert to discuss it. That was their secret vault, not money but entitlement, dressed in a spreadsheet. I forwarded the thread to my attorney, Ethan, the one who reminds panicked heirs that feelings aren't contracts. He called me within the hour and said 3 things. Document everything. Do not confront alone, and if they escalate, we will, too. I didn't plan revenge. I planned boundaries that would hold even when my hands shook. Which brings us back to the clatter of forks and the glow of numbers on my screen. I had stepped upstairs for 10 minutes to confirm a Swiss lot's provenance before it closed. The tab with my operating accounts was open because I'd been reconciling a transfer. Kara didn't knock. She moved straight to the screen, eyes widening, then narrowing into a calculation I recognized from childhood. What of yours can be made mine? She lifted the laptop and marched toward the stairs. Candles, clinked glasses, chatter. Then Kara's voice like a bell. Everyone, look what Mara's been hiding. I arrived as faces turned. My mother's expression found the precise center between hurt and accusation. My father's jaw set into the old line I knew meant decision, not dialogue. Why would you keep this from us? My mother asked, as if secrecy were the sin and not the theft they were gearing up to commit. Because it isn't yours, I said, but my voice came out calm instead of sharp, and that made them angrier. My father tapped the table once, a habit that used to soothe me. Now it sounded like a gavel. When were you going to step up for this family? He said. I almost laughed. I had stepped up so often, my knees ached. Rent shortfalls, tuition bridges, deposits when a roommate bailed, flights after a fight. 2 years of automatic drafts that totaled more than a starter home. You let us struggle, my mother said. I covered more than you know, I answered, and you didn't ask once how I was doing. Kara tilted her chin. You owe me. she said, righteous as a benefactor. I've been trying to build a future while you hoard. What she meant was simple. Your success belongs to me because my story has always mattered more than your reality. What they didn't know was that I had already seen their agenda and locked my own door. I picked up my phone, opened the family plan email, and set it on the table beside the centerpiece, like another dish waiting to be served. Fear flickered. Faces shifted. The email sat by the roasted carrots like a fuse. My mother reached for it, read the subject line, and recoiled as if paper could burn. My father didn't touch it. He watched me instead, the way foremen watch cranes, calculating leverage. Kara laughed, a note too high to be casual. Out of context, she said. It's just planning. Family's plan. It's a demand, I said, a schedule for my spine. I slid my phone beside the paper and opened my banking app. Months of line items appeared. Tuition transfers, rent top-ups. Emergency deposits that never announced themselves as emergencies. Just silence that made me fill the gap. 147,200 over 24 months, I said, not including flights, gifts, or the time you asked me to rescue a security deposit when a roommate vanished. My mother shook her head, tears bright and conveniently timed. We're doing our best. We thought you'd want to help. That last word, their favorite spell, landed like a soft chain. Help, the velvet rope they loop around my neck and call love. I turned the phone so everyone could see the numbers. You say I hid money. I say I covered costs. You say family shares. I say boundaries, share the load, without erasing anyone. I tapped another tab. The bursar portal for Kara's university loaded with a polite, damning banner. Not enrolled this term. So where? I asked. Did the tuition go? Kara flushed then rallied. Mental health break. You can't put a price on healing. You put a price on everything else, I said lightly. I swiped again and opened a brand deck someone had forwarded me from her boyfriend's email. A glossy PDF with Kara's name on the cover and a slide labeled Seed Capital Roadmap. The figure in the corner matched a month of my transfers to the dollar. My father finally picked up the email, scanned the spreadsheet, and folded it in half, like folding could make it less real. We meant to talk about this gracefully, he said. You have the means. We have needs. A fair distribution makes sense. There it was. Math masquerading as morality. The equation always arrived at the same answer. Kara's future equals my obligation. I'm not a foundation, I said. I'm a person, and I won't bankroll a plan that treats honesty like an optional fee. I opened my banking app again, scrolled to recurring transfers, and hovered. I could feel the room leaning toward me, a flock drawn to a switch. Don't, my mother whispered, with a terror that was finally honest. She won't survive the semester. She isn't in the semester, I said. Then I pressed cancel. 1, 2, 3. Each confirmation chimed, a tiny bell tolling for a habit. Kara lunged as if she could grab the sound out of the air. You can't do that, she said, outrage wobbling toward panic. I have rent. I have a studio. My portfolio review is next month. You can build one, I said. Start with a budget. She stared as if the word were an insult. My father stood, the chair legs shrieking across the floor. Sit, he told me, sharp with the voice that always ended arguments when I was a child. I remained standing. This isn't a court, he said. We don't need to litigate. Good, I said, because I brought counsel anyway. I tapped a saved contact and placed my phone on speaker. Ethan answered on the first ring. I introduced him to the room, and, to their credit, or fear, no one spoke over him. He summarized kindly and cleanly. I was under no legal obligation to support adult relatives. Future contact about money should go through him. Harassment would trigger formal action. My mother clutched the edge of the table, as if it might slide away. So that's it, she whispered. You're abandoning your family. Abandoning, the accusation with a halo. I looked at her hands, the same shape as mine, and felt grief without confusion. I'm abandoning a lie, I said. I'm abandoning the idea that my worth is what I give away. I'm keeping love. I'm keeping respect. If you want both, they come as a set. A cousin cleared his throat and said, too loud, maybe we should pray. It broke the spell long enough for me to close my laptop, slide it from Kara's grip, and tuck it beneath my arm. The caterer in the doorway froze, eyes on the carpet, as if asked to witness a crime. Thank you for dinner, I told the room I had fed. Desserts in the kitchen. The bill is already paid. Kara followed me into the hall, fury shedding glamour. You're cruel, she hissed. You're jealous? Jealous of what? I wanted to ask. The endless permission to fail. The applause for attempts. Instead, I said, I'm done funding the version of you that never has to grow. She tried a different weapon. If you walk out, I'll tell everyone how you got that money. I smiled then, not unkindly. Tell them I worked. I stepped into the cold. November tasted metallic, like the air before a storm breaks. Behind me, the house buzzed with a new kind of silence, the kind that follows a line drawn in permanent ink. I walked to my car and sat with my hands on the wheel until they stopped shaking. My phone vibrated. Ethan again. I'll draft notices tonight. Rest. Boundaries are a muscle. You just used yours. I drove home by the long route, past the river, where lights skim the black surface like coins no one will ever retrieve. Every mile loosened a knot I'd been living around. When I unlocked my door, the apartment greeted me with nothing but its own breath, the quiet I had bought and maintained. I made tea, left my phone face down, and let the water steep until it went almost bitter. Morning would come, and with it, the real storm of messages. By morning, the phone looked like a slot machine gone feral. Missed calls, texts, emails, voice notes with subject lines that pulsed like sirens. I put it face down and brewed coffee so dark it scolded my tongue, then forwarded everything to Ethan with one line. Handle this. He replied in minutes. Notices sent, filters set, every request for money routes to me. The adrenaline that had carried me through the night drained like rain, leaving a roof. That was when the first apology arrived. Sugar spun around a hook. We didn't mean to embarrass you, my mother wrote, but family shares. Let's reset. Bring a check to dinner tonight. It wasn't contrition. It was administration. An office memo on the stationery of love. I deleted it, archived the cousins who suddenly remembered my number, and saved the few messages that felt like hands instead of nets. One was from Mrs. Reyes, the neighbor who taught me to parallel park in high school. Proud of you, kiddo. Boundaries are how we stay kind to ourselves. 2 weeks later, I signed a lease on a small house with windows that watched a lake instead of a parking lot. The rooms were modest, the floor warm under bare feet, the kitchen a bright square that smelled like lemons when the sun hit the counters. I moved in a trunk, a kettle, the notebooks where I keep provenance threads, and the framed photo of my father teaching me to bait a hook when I was 8. I looked at his hand on mine and felt a hollow, not of anger, but of recognition. We had both learned the wrong lesson. He thought control kept people safe. I thought silence did. The first Saturday, I woke before sun, made tea, and stood at the window until the sky brightened from iron to pewter to pearl. I didn't cry. I didn't gloat. I breathed, counted the birds, and wrote a list on the back of a receipt. Things I would not carry anymore. Other people's panic. Other people's versions of me. The idea that I owed anyone my piece to be considered good. At noon, the group chat lit again. Louder. Kara had posted a slide deck to her story, a collage of crying selfies and captions about betrayal and blood. She hadn't said my name, but the town is small, the timing exact. And the convertible in the background did the heavy lifting. A distant aunt emailed a paragraph about forgiveness that ended with a donation link to Kara's brand launch. I forwarded it to Ethan and went for a run. The air was cold enough to clean the inside of my chest. I ran past a line of maples that had let go of every last leaf, and I practiced letting go of mine. After the second mile, the answer arrived clear as frost. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't explain. And I wouldn't perform. I would document, redirect, and continue building what had always been mine. The next week, a museum I'd consulted for years asked if I'd take on a larger role. They wanted someone who could be decisive without noise. I thought about the difference between noise and music. Noise demands attention. Music earns it. I said, yes. That afternoon, Kara called from an unknown number. I answered because sometimes closure needs a witness. She started in tears, slid to fury, then landed in strategy. If you wire me 3 months, I'll tell everyone you're helping quietly. It looks better for you. I pictured the spreadsheet, the convertible, the empty enrollment portal. No, I said, gentle as a door closing. But I'll meet you tomorrow at noon, coffee shop by the lake. No money. A conversation. She arrived late in sunglasses, sat like she owned the light, and let me buy her a latte before saying she hated the taste of milk. I asked what she wanted besides money. She blinked, as if the question were in a language she hadn't needed to learn. Support, she said, then clarified. Access. Introductions. A push. I'll give you advice. I said. I'll review a budget. A plan. A timeline. I'll introduce you if you show work sustained over 6 months. But I won't be your parachute. She laughed. You're cold. I'm consistent, I said. Consistency looks like cold when you're used to heat on demand. She left without saying goodbye. I watched her in the window's reflection, a flicker of old tenderness, stirring and then settling, like silt after a boat passes. In December, my mother asked to meet. We sat on a bench near the water, 2 coats touching, our breaths drawing small clouds. She said she was scared. Scared of bills, of aging, of losing Kara, of losing me. We thought if we made a plan, we'd all be safe. I looked at the lake, which offered no answers, just a surface steady enough to rest on. I can't make you safe, I said. I can be clear. I told her what I would give: time, visits, recipes, rides, the name of a good accountant. I told her what I wouldn't: money on demand, secrecy, the story where I vanish. She cried, quietly, the way wind moves reeds. Your grandmother would be disappointed, she said, which used to work like a charm. Maybe, I said. Or maybe she'd be proud. I learned to hold my own hand. She didn't apologize. I didn't demand it. We sat until the cold found our wrists, then stood and hugged like women who share a language but not a dictionary. On New Year's Day, I opened a new document and wrote a different kind of plan. Not for them. For me. A scholarship fund for first-gen students in conservation and arts logistics. Modest at first, growing with the projects I chose. It felt like pointing a beam away from a house that never noticed the light toward rooms where it mattered. I slept well that night.